What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six podcast presented by Cisco, the bridge to possible. Pick Six podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ. Anyway, I'm Will Brinson, joined, and look at me, I'm taller than Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco today. How fun. Good to talk to you guys on a Wednesday. We are doing what we do every week. We're breaking down picks against the spread for every single NFL game. I will presume that Brady went 12-2-2 last week again, or something like that. How was your record, Brady?
Not good. Let's just leave it at that.
You know who remains nuclear? And it's not surprising.
Hey,
Let's go ahead.
Hey, Will, you know how I knew it wasn't good? I didn't get the text on Sunday afternoon from Brady bragging about his picks.
By the way,
got the text. How bad my week was. The difference is he made a pick last week and then changed his pick for the weekend. Unfortunately, I have to be beholden to the picks we make on Wednesday. I can't be a flip-flopper, a fish out of the water like Pete Prisco can, flip-flopping back and forth up until the game on Sunday.
The old flip-flopper.
I never changed my picks, Brady. You're wrong.
Yeah, Pete's been saying that for years. Hey, to pick up.
I'm on fire. Just live with it.
Pete, look, here's the reality. We're all living in a Westworld-style simulation. We're lying in a laboratory in a tube in like a floating like pile of pink goo, and like they're just making it hilarious that Pete's getting everything right in 2020. That's what's happening. I'm fully convinced we're in a Westworld-style simulation. That's the only reason you can explain Pete being right about everything, well, almost everything, this season in terms of football. Let's get to the picks. Sorry, you missed last night. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. The Steelers, the Browns, 4-1. The first time since 1994. The Steelers -3.5 here, Pete. The over-under a robust 51 points for this AFC North matchup.
You know the last time the Browns won at Heinz Field, and the only time they won at Heinz Field? 2003. Can you believe that? They won't win there again. The Browns are good. They're a great story. I think Kevin Stefanski's a heck of a coach. They run the ball. They do everything off of that run. I'm impressed. They lead the league in rushing. They got a good offensive line. But they're going to go against the Steelers defense. Didn't play well last week, but they will bounce back here. And on the other side of the ball, the Steelers have come alive on offense. Ben Roethlisberger and that passing game, and that Notre Dame guy, Brady, Chase Claypool, looks really good. Once Deontay Johnson gets back, they got a lot of weapons. They're going to put a number on the Browns. Look, Cleveland's a great story early on, and I'm going to give Brady credit. He said they would win 10 games for the second straight year. He said that. They might get to 10 wins, but they're not winning this game. I love the Steelers minus the points here.
Pete, I got them at 9-7. Yes, I have them as a playoff team, but you got to stop with the 10 wins thing. That was last year. This year's a little bit different. I'm with you, though, on this particular pick. I'm going to take Pittsburgh, and I'm going to go ahead and lay the points. It has nothing to do with history and old father time, as Pete Prisco likes to recall, because he's been on this earth longer than anyone else. But it has more to do with the fact that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is the best defense that this Cleveland Browns team has faced since week one. And what happened in week one? Well, the Baltimore Ravens got ahead. They unfortunately forced the Cleveland Browns out of really what we've seen the past 4 weeks from them. And that's really, giving more attention to the rushing attack, play action, boots, run action pass, allowing Baker Mayfield to feel more comfortable with more space and time to throw the football down the field. I don't believe they'll be able to do that versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This defense is too good. And I think there's a chance, too, this offense that does appear to be finding its stride is going to have some issues with trying to match up with all the different options at wide receiver and Ben Roethlisberger distributing the football. So, unfortunately, look, I was a former Cleveland Brown. I grew up a Browns fan. This is one of the most heated rivalries you will see in the NFL. I hate admitting this, but I'm going to have to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers and lay the points.
I'm going to go the other way, and mainly because it looks too obvious to take the Steelers -3.5. I think everybody's going to be on Pittsburgh. I think the Browns are legit. This team's for real. Myles Garrett is putting together a Defensive Player of the Year campaign. Now, this would all change, of course, if Baker Mayfield is unable to go or is severely limited. We don't know the details of that because we're doing the show on Wednesday afternoon, and the game isn't actually played until Sunday. In fact, there's no more football till Sunday. The one spot I really like, though, in looking at this game is the over. And I think you guys sort of touched on it. I think Pete might like it too. But you talk about how these teams can score. Cleveland is running the ball a ton, but still putting up plenty of points. I think Odell Beckham will come and show up in a big way. And another thing Pete's been right on, you know who hadn't been that great this year? Minka Fitzpatrick. I mean, he got roasted and dragged on that top 100 list all offseason long, and Minka hadn't done much of anything. So, I think the Browns will be able to get their points. Pittsburgh will score 2. That's Cleveland secondary, not very dangerous right now, and I think we'll see north of 51 here. So if I was looking for something on this game, I would go over. Chicago at Carolina. Oh, the Bears. Oh, the Bears and their fans on Twitter. Carolina's -2.5, Pete, at home. Carolina's a big surprise. So is Chicago. Over under 44.5. What do you like in this spot?
By the way, I'm glad you took the Browns and you're on the other side, because your picks stink like a dumpster fire. I mean, they're terrible. You've been so bad, Brinson. Do you think you turn it around this week? I mean, I'm glad we'd be on the other side of everything, because I don't want you on my side, and I know Brady doesn't either. This game is interesting. And Bears fans have a right to be mad at you. They have a right to be mad at me. They have a right to be mad at everybody, because the Bears are 4-1. We didn't see that coming. I didn't. I know you didn't. Give them credit. But they're not a great football team. I still don't think Nick Foles is very good at quarterback. On the other side, the one thing that surprised me as much as anything in this league has been how the Carolina defense has played. They're a bunch of young kids. They're flying to the football. They're getting after the quarterback. They're playing good defense, and that surprised me a little bit. Matt Rule's doing a heck of a job. Teddy Bridgewater's throwing the football well. I know the Bears are good on defense, but in this spot, I'm going to take Carolina. I think they pull the upset here, or win the game. They're not the upset, but I'll lay the points and take Carolina. And you know what? Bears fans finally might get off Will Brinson's back.
Here's the deal in this game. You've got a 3-2 Carolina team that I'm still not sure what exactly they are. I think they do deserve somewhat of a golf clap with the way Matt Rule and Joe Brady have been able to make this team competitive, so far lead them to a winning record. And I think they're almost at the win total that I projected them to be for the entire season so far after 5 games. And then on the flip side, the Chicago Bears team that's overachieved, 4-1 so far. No one saw that coming. I'm going to go ahead and ride with the Chicago Bears here. I think they're getting 2.5 points. I like that fact because I think both these teams are pretty even. And so if you're going to give me an edge, I'll go ahead and take it. I do think Nick Foles to Allen Robinson will continue to develop over the course of the season. Allen Robinson, who's one of the more underrated wide receivers in this league. And I think they're going to still continue to keep working at getting the rushing attack going, too. Pete mentioned the defense for Chicago. I think if we're looking at these two defenses, I'm still looking at the Chicago Bears as the better of the two. Even though I like what I've seen from the Carolina Panthers' young defense, I think the Bears take advantage of that young group. Maybe they make a few mistakes in the course of this game, but this is a tight game. This is a low-scoring game. This is a game where I'll go ahead and take the 2.5 points of Chicago.
Yeah, I think the under is a great play here because you saw with Carolina, they could have done anything they wanted against Atlanta from a scoring perspective. They had some long plays, and they still, even as much as they're not running the football right now a ton, they're very methodical and they're using the short passing game. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't stretch the field. I do think Carolina's defense is a lot better than people think, but they can be had via the ground game. So this is a great spot for the under as both Chicago and Carolina try to eat up clock. It's a really low total, one you don't expect to see in 2020, but I like the under. I will take Carolina because, quite frankly, while I'm worried that the Bears will win the game outright, I'm a little, brand committed at this point, and the Bears are frauds, and I got to just keep saying that until they win the Super Bowl. And Matt Nagy is watching the confetti stream down upon him, and I'm yelling into a crevasse like, they're frauds! We're like locked away in an insane asylum. So I will go with it anyway. Denver at New England. The Patriots are minus 10 points here. Cam Newton, I believe Field Yates of ESPN reported back at practice this week, expected to play. Melvin Gordon cited for DU, and they are aware of the situation, so we don't know exactly how those two things will play out, but expect Cam to play. Pats minus 10, over under 46.5, Pete.
Yeah, I think the Broncos won their game 10 days ago against the Jets and barely won it, and the Jets are terrible. The Broncos aren't very good either. They've had so many injuries and so many issues, and now the Melvin Gordon situation complicates things a little bit more. And I think the Patriots have been rested. They get their quarterback back, which is huge for them. That team can scheme up things against young quarterbacks, whoever's going to play this week for the Broncos. And I think this is one of those situations where Bill Belichick at home gets the cover. Cam Newton comes back, does a lot of Superman poses, and shows people that, you know what, the Patriots are going to be a playoff team in large part because of him and because of Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. Best coaching staff, I'll take them and lay the points.
It's hard to think that you could be on Denver's side here. I know their defense is, probably played it maybe a little bit better than people imagine without having Von Miller this year, but I have a hard time believing their offense is going to be able to, on the road, which wherever quarterback starts, is going to be able to put up a bunch of points. Whether or not Melvin Gordon plays this game, obviously that plays a role too, depending on the discipline from the team or the league. I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game, though. I know they're getting Cam Newton back, but I think Vic Fangio will have something, set up to limit Cam Newton's effectiveness as a runner, and then we'll see what they can do in the passing game versus that secondary there in Denver. So, look, I'm going to go ahead and lay the points with the New England Patriots just because I don't know that Denver is going to be able to score much, but I don't know how much New England will either in this matchup. So I like New England, and I also like the under.
Yeah, I like the Patriots a lot. I would agree on the under, too. I think with New England here, a consensus pick, Pat's minus 10 for us. One of the things that stands out is it doesn't matter if it's Drew Lock coming back or whether it's Brett Rippon in there at all. Bill Belichick has dominated at home against the spread against quarterbacks who are 25 years or younger. The only ones who have really given him any trouble since he took over in New England are basically like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. Now, Mark Sanchez has a couple wins, too, but Denver's not the 2009, 2010 Jets who had that defense in that running game. I think the Patriots take care of business and roll in this one. Houston at Tennessee. Feels like we just saw the Titans on television, and yet they're back again. Another home game for the Titans. Another chance for Mike Vrabel and company to feel disrespected by the world. Chip on their shoulder for violating COVID protocols. The Titans are -3 against Houston. The over/under 53.5, Pete.
What's funny is the Titans are getting lit up for that, but anybody who's been around, and Brady can attest to this, anybody who's been around the NFL knows that coaches will try and use anything and everything as motivation for their players. And so I think Mike Vrabel deserves a lot of credit for what he did on Tuesday night, because that team was a disaster. They had guys out. The best defensive player, Jeffrey Simmons, wasn't playing. They're banged up at receiver. And yet they found a way to dominate a good team. And that tells you that Mike Vrabel is a good football coach through everything that they went through. Practice? Who needs practice? They don't need practice. What the hell you need to practice for in the NFL? They went out and they dominated the game. This game will be a lot like that. I think the Texans are a bad football team. They won last week against Jacksonville, who's even a worse football team. Deshaun Watson doesn't look right. He's holding on to the football. The line isn't great. The receiving group got going a little bit last week. But defensively, they don't rush the passer. They're not great in the secondary. Give me the Titans. They're going to blow them out in this game. And normally this is usually a pretty tight game, but I'm going to lay the points with the Titans.
Pete mentioned Mike Vrabel using anything as motivation. We don't have to just look any further than last year. And literally, he will use anything as motivation to motivate that locker room. So yes, Pete, he is a good head coach, and he pulls out all the stops in regards to what that motivation is. I'm not going to get into that, though, because I don't want to get us in trouble. However,
I wasn't going there. I wasn't going there.
It's going to be a little reminiscent of, I think, what we saw from the Minnesota Vikings getting their first win versus the Houston Texans. You'll remember that offensive line beat up the Houston Texans defensive front. They started to get the running game going in that matchup. That's exactly what the Tennessee Titans want to do. That's exactly what they did versus the Buffalo Bills. Even though Derrick Henry wasn't overly productive in that game, I do think the offensive line did a fairly good job. And defensively, I thought they did a good job versus the Buffalo Bills. I think we're going to see something very similar to that. Ryan Tannehill has been phenomenal this year since taking over as a starting quarterback. And a lot of quarterbacks could take a lesson from what he's doing well. He's been efficient. He's taking what the defense gives him. He's not forcing things downfield. And when nothing's there, he's taking off and running, whether it's for a touchdown or to pick up a first down. So I like the Tennessee Titans altogether this year. I know statistically their defense doesn't look good, but Tannehill's playing at a great clip. I do think this is a game where Derrick Henry goes off with the rushing attack, and I think Deshaun Watson is going to have some trouble. He might have some moments where they have some nice scoring drives, but overall, I think the Titans are going to run away with this one.
Yeah, and one of the things that we saw with Deshaun Watson recently, they had a chance, against the Vikings to, Bill O'Brien took over play calling, and that was a desperation game. O'Brien was fired after the game, obviously. But the Vikings did sort of similar to what the Titans did to the Bills in terms of all right, look, we're going to drop back. We're going to play some zone. We're going to dare you to make throws into tight windows and to read the full field. We're not going to turn around and let you run and scramble and all that. I would expect that Tennessee, who just did it to Josh Allen, is going to come with a similar game plan for Deshaun Watson. Now, I love the over in this game because I think eventually the Titans will score 20, 28 points, and you're going to see Deshaun Watson pick up a bunch of garbage time fantasy scoring, which might even allow him to have a good day. The only reason he justified Jamie's start of the week last week was garbage time, but what are you going to do? And look, Mike Vrabel would probably give anything in the entire world, anything, for that #1 seed in the AFC and that bye. And I think that, maybe he gets a good start on it here. I'm a little worried about Derrick Henry's playing time and the reps he got. Maybe they're trying to ease him back a little bit. But I think it's a smash spot for Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown. Agree with you guys on the Titans winning this game easily. All right, when we come back, can Lamar Jackson finally have a big day? Hadn't had one all season long. Will it come against Philadelphia? We'll tell you after the break. Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast show on CBS Sports HQ, brought to you by Cisco. Bridge to possible. Let's talk some Eagles. Well, the Eagles are trying to bridge the impossible, make the playoffs after their start. Maybe they should call Cisco as well. Lamar Jackson hasn't had a great season, much to Pete Prisco, your delight, but the Ravens are favored by 7.5 points in Philadelphia. The over-under 47.5. What? You think he has a breakout game here? Come on.
Wait, why is that much to my delight? I thought Lamar Jackson improved greatly. I've said it all along. He's better than I thought he would be coming out of school, and he's improved as a passer leading into this year. He hadn't done it this year, and that's a concern. But you know what? This week he will. This week is the week where Lamar Jackson, that passing game, gets going. I think last week it was more of a function of his inability to take off and run like he could normally do. He's banged up a little bit. And that makes you defend him differently. With his ability to run back, he says he's healthier this week. He's all the way back. I think he'll move around a little bit better. And there's going to be plays made down the field. They're not a good defense in Philadelphia, I don't think. You saw Chase Claypool go through him, around him, over him for 4 touchdowns last week. I think the Ravens get into a good spot here and start getting that offense cranked up. And defensively, I think they limit the Eagles. So I'm going to lay the points and quit putting words in my mouth, Will Brinson.
My goodness, Will. You just got scolded by Dad over there. I don't like the hook here. I like the Baltimore Ravens to win this game. I just feel like it may be a little bit more closer than we think. However, I just haven't seen much life out of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. I know it's been a reoccurring theme, but I feel like this is a bad defense to go up against if you're looking at trying to get back into some sort of groove. And unfortunately, the Philadelphia couldn't really find it last week. I don't think they're going to find it this week versus Don Martindale's scheme, where he likes to bring a lot of pressure. They have the ability to match up on the outsides. So I think this is going to be tough going for Carson Wentz and the Eagles scoring points in this one. On the flip side, I'm not as optimistic that the Ravens will necessarily have a huge performance either. I do think the front for Philly could provide some issues for that offensive line for Baltimore, maybe able to slow down Jackson a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and lay the 7.5 points just because I feel like Baltimore is just a better team at this point. But something smells fishy about this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Philadelphia, and I don't feel good about it. And I was double-checking my pick here on the rundown. I was like, well, too late to change now. So I'll go against you guys, and I'll take Carson Wentz to come through the back door. I am intrigued, though, by what Pete said about Lamar getting right as a passer and putting together a big week, because I think people, especially in DFS, people might be off on him, and maybe this is the week you play Lamar and you cash that $1 million and you don't show up for next week's Wednesday Pick Six podcast show because you're rolling around in a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck. Who knows? I will take the Eagles plus 7.5, though. And by the way, Pete, the reason you're rooting against Lamar Jackson is because you want Josh Allen to be the best passer in the 2017 draft class. And you're hoping that'll happen. And if Lamar Jackson regresses, then you have a better chance of it occurring. So you are, in fact, rooting against all the other guys in that draft class because you are the captain, the chief, the head honcho of the Josh Allen fan club. Rough Tuesday night for you, pal. Washington at the Giants. Giants minus 2.5. Oh, my God. Thank God this game is on Fox because we can thrash it. This game stinks. Washington at the Giants. Giants minus 2.5. Over under 43, Pete. This is a trash pile.
Yeah, but Kyle Allen's back in at quarterback. Oh, boy. Oh, my gosh. These teams are bad. It's a bad football team. They can rush the passer. They have some good defensive linemen on that Washington football team, but the rest of that group is not a good team. And I think the Giants have made progress, a little bit of progress. It's still not great, but you can see they're starting to get a little better. And they showed up last week against the Cowboys. Who are the Cowboys? Well, they're bad on defense, but the Cowboys are pretty good on offense, even if Andy Dalton is playing quarterback. So I like what I saw from the Giants last week. I think they're going to win their first game against the Washington football team, who might be. Thank God the Jets and the Jaguars are in the league. Otherwise, they'd be the worst team in the league. But I'll take the Giants and lay the points. They get their first victory.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is this game is going to be about who can score any points. I've got more faith in Daniel Jones, at least their passing attack, against the Washington football team. Even though they do have that good pass rush, I do think they're going to be vulnerable in the secondary. So I have more faith in that than I do necessarily in Kyle Allen, this Washington football team. I mean, go back to last week and just look at their production. It's hard really to think that they're going to be able to do enough with Terry McLaurin to get him the football to be effective. Really, Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick happen to be their other options. Logan Thomas has never really developed into what they're hoping he's going to be. And when Dak Prescott was playing for the Dallas Cowboys last week, you got to give a little bit of credit to New York Giants defense. They had their moments. They looked okay at times. So I'm not sure how many points are scored this game, but I think the team that's going to score the most is going to end up being the New York Giants. So I'm willing to lay the 2.5 points here.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just sort of have a few rules in life, and one of them is don't take the Giants as a favorite. Like, what are we doing here? Why are the Giants favored in any football game in 2020? The Giants are awful. Daniel Jones hasn't played well. He's a turnover machine. They're calling him in New York Jameis Jones. That's what they're calling him. The Giants fans are calling him Daniel Winston, Jameis Jones. That ain't Danny Dimes. He's Danny Nichols. He's going to get sacked, fumble the ball. The Redskins will, I did it. Put it in the swear jar. Sorry. The Washington football team will score a couple defensive touchdowns here. And Kyle Allen and Terry McLaurin make some sweet, beautiful noise through the air. I'll take the Washington football team. I can't believe I called him that. It's the first time in like 3 weeks. That's so annoying. Cincinnati at Indianapolis. The Colts -8, Pete. Over under 46.5.
Yeah, and Phillip Rivers isn't playing good football. In 2 losses, he was the reason they lost both games. He turned the ball over. He was terrible last week, threw a bad pick 6 to Ronnie Harrison. Couldn't make enough plays, took a safety. Now, that one wasn't really on him, but they just didn't play well offensively. And I think he's limited by what he has outside. They have T.Y. Hilton. He hasn't done much of anything. So they need to run the football, and the Bengals have issues stopping the run. So I think this is one of those games where the Colts just pound it and pound it and pound it. And we know the Colts are good on defense. Look, Joe Burrow off to a great start in his career. Then last week, you go to Baltimore and you get maimed. They destroyed him. They got after him. They hit him. They beat him up. The kid just keeps getting up. But how much more can you take? The offensive line is brutal. I'm going to lay the points. I think the Colts rebound here. I think Rivers plays better. But I think more than that, they run the football and continue to control the clock and play good defense.
Yeah, this offensive line for the Bengals was awful last week. I don't think it gets any better this week versus the Colts defense. It's one of the best now in the NFL. It's going to be a tough going for Joe Burrow, although I think he'll probably handle it better the second time around, getting rid of the football. And we'll see what the situation is with A.J. Green. Looked like he kind of gave up on the team. Now rumors that maybe he wants to be traded and get out of there. But bottom line is this is a get-back-right game for Phillip Rivers. This Bengals defense, as Pete talked about, he said they can't stop the run. They can't really stop the pass either. So I really think there is an opportunity for Phillip Rivers to put up some points here and put up a big number versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So feel comfortable laying the 8 points. It's kind of a big number for a team that lost, in kind of a bad way last week. But I'm willing to roll with Will Brinson's old college roommate in Phillip Rivers.
Look, here's the deal. The Colts are a good team capable of snuffing out bad teams, but I'm going to need to see Anthony Costanzo and Darius Leonard back on the field before I totally buy into the Colts laying 8 points here. I think if Leonard in particular is out, then I really like the ability of Cincinnati to come down late, score a touchdown, and Joe Burrow get back to his backdoor fashion. Joe Mixon could have a really nice game if Leonard is out. We've seen it, I think 14 targets the last 2 weeks. And I think also this is a spot for Jonathan Taylor to have a big game. Don't think there'll be a ton of points, so I'll take the 8 And I just think it's just too many points for an Indianapolis team that likes to kick field goals in the red zone and isn't really aggressive about trying to score or put up a ton of points. Detroit -3 at Jacksonville. Oh, baby, my Lions favored in Jacksonville. They're coming to your city, Pete. The over-under here, 54.5. Wow.
My old city, by the way. And, look, Matt Stafford hasn't played great this year. He was decent the first half against the Saints, threw 3 touchdown passes, but hadn't been great. He'll be great on Sunday. That Jacksonville defense has all kinds of issues, and they're going to get some guys back who missed last week, but I think that defense struggles to rush the passer. They're not great outside the corner, and I think Matt Stafford's going to go down there and chuck it around. Gardner Minshew puts up good numbers, but he's showing he's not the long-term answer. He holds the ball. He leaves clean pockets. He doesn't throw unless the guy's wide open. I think it's going to be one of those games where the Lions get out to an early lead, 27-10. Minshew will get some garbage points, but I like the Lions and I like the over. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Wow, Pete, it's almost like you're saying Gardner Minshew's just working with so much, and he's the problem there in Jacksonville. I think you can make the argument he's the only thing kind of keeping them competitive and staying afloat at times. But
no,
bottom line is I am with you on this one. I do think Matt Stafford is going to be able to, put up some big numbers versus this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Some extended rest, extra time to prepare. If we learned anything from the Tennessee Titans just blowing out the Buffalo Bills, it's the fact that apparently you don't even have to practice. Like the better rested team in 2020, even if they haven't showed up at the facility for 2 weeks, is going to be the better of these two. But in all reality, too, I think if the Detroit Lions want to start making a move within the NFC North and trying to get back competitive, like this is their time. This is their moment. This is a game that they should have no problem winning. And so I feel comfortable laying the 3 points with Detroit, but I think they win by much more than that.
Yeah, I got Detroit here too. My Lions need a win. They need to go down to Jacksonville. They need to take care of business. You can blow out a bad team. Look, I got to tell you, if Matt Patricia gets a 14-plus point lead in this game and then blows it against the Jaguars, he should be fired the following Monday because you can't blow that many 14 double-digit point leads. You just can't do it. Your defense isn't that good either. So you go, Matt Patricia, are you standing for Matt Patricia here? Find a different hill to die on, Brady. Like the Gardner Minshew is the future in Jacksonville hill.
I'm just following the conversation, following your internal monologue going on right now.
Yeah, you don't want to follow that. You take you to a dark spot or two. Look, but the bottom line is I think that you need to keep throwing the football. If you have Matt Patricia doesn't need to clam up and try to run the ball with Adrian Peterson. Throw it all over this Jacksonville defense, as Brady apparently likes to say, Jaguars. Toss the ball around, score a bunch of points, win the game, hit the over. Let's get out of Dodge with a win, Lions. All right, coming up. Oh, who pronounces it Jaguars? It's so weird. Coming up, will the Falcons have a dead bird bounce? We'll tell you next after the break.
Your news in 90. Florida's game against LSU, originally scheduled for this Saturday, has been postponed due to a number of COVID-19 cases on the Gators side. The game tentatively rescheduled for December the 12th in Gainesville. 21 Florida players and 2 assistant coaches have tested positive for the coronavirus. In the NFL, Chandler Jones is done for the season. Cardinals coach Cliff Kingsbury says the All-Pro linebacker is going to have season-ending surgery on his right biceps. He was second in the NFL last year with 19 sacks and had a league-high 8 forced fumbles. And the NFL reimagining the Pro Bowl this season. Rosters will still be selected with voting starting next month, but instead of a game, the NFL planning a, quote, variety of engaging activities, end quote. Also, the 2022 Pro Bowl is going to be played in Las Vegas.
Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ, brought to you by Cisco, the bridge to possible. Atlanta fired their coach and their general manager after a lethargic performance and loss at home to the Carolina Panthers. And now the Falcons have to go on the road to play the Minnesota Vikings, who got daggered by Russell Wilson on Sunday Night Football on the road. Who bounces back here, Pete? What's the best bet with Vikings minus 3.5 and an over-under of 55?
Yeah, I think the over-under is definitely in play. Neither team is great on defense. I think the Vikings are getting a little bit better on that side of the ball. But, the Falcons coaching change could give them some juice. And I think they've played poorly this year on defense, well, actually awful on defense. But they've also not played great on offense. And that's been something that's a concern. Julio Jones hasn't been around. But something tells me they go into Minnesota. They're not going to win the game, but you're going to give me 3.5 points. I think they hang around. I think Raheem Morris gets them to play with a little bit more passion in this game. I think Matt Ryan will play better. I don't think the Vikings are that good rushing the passer, and that's been a problem for him. So if you're going to give me the points, I'm going to take 3.5 and the Atlanta Falcons. They won't win, but it'll be close.
As a former player, I've been through some head coaches getting fired during the season. And this is what happens in the locker room. It's called self-preservation mode. And usually guys start looking out for themselves and their future more so than where the team is trying to go. It's a concerning thing, especially for an Atlanta team that still has a lot of football left to be played, and especially when your owner comes out and doesn't give you any sort of long-term commitment to a quarterback who's basically going to be under their salary cap next year because of how much they still owe him unless they can work out a trade. But the bottom line here is the story is more about the Minnesota Vikings. If they want to make a move to try to climb back up in the NFC North, much like I just talked about with the Detroit Lions, they've got to win this one. And they should be able to beat this Atlanta Falcons team. This defense is awful. And elevating Raheem Morris isn't going to change anything. He was already calling the defense. Maybe now Jeff Ulbright, since he's taken over as defensive coordinator, maybe he'll do a better job at it. But bottom line is their defense is terrible. Matt Ryan's not having a good year. Their offensive line has struggled. Julio Jones, if he's not a part of this game, it's a big letdown. And I'm willing to bet on what I saw from the rushing attack, even if Dalvin Cook doesn't play, of them being able to do enough there, throwing the football enough like we saw versus the Seattle Seahawks. And defensively, look, they made some strides. This isn't the same Minnesota Vikings defense we're accustomed to seeing, but I do think they can play well enough versus this Atlanta Falcons group. So I do hate the hook, but I'm willing to lay the 3.5 points because I'm not sure what direction this Atlanta Falcons team is going right now. And I think it's headed towards a rebuild.
This turkey vulture is hitting the concrete. Slapping it hard, and it's flying right back up to take off and take down the Vikings. I like the Atlanta Falcons in the spot. I love the Atlanta Falcons in the spot. Plus 3.5. This is a shootout. These defenses are terrible. And when you look at the Vikings, yes, they can get after the passer, and that's a concern. But if you're Atlanta, you got to change up some tendencies here. Stop running this offense through Todd Gurley and let Matt Ryan cook. These cornerbacks for Minnesota are real young and real exploitable, and you can take some shots down the field with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Max protect and let Matt Ryan throw it away. Remind Arthur Blank that you could go 11-0 Raheem Morris, and then he has to give you the job because he promised it. Or something like that. Anyway, I like the Falcons to cover the 3.5 here. Oh, man, this is a great matchup on CBS. Miami, minus 10, hosting the Jets. Joe Flacco, Frank Gore, Jamison Crowder. What could be more exciting than a combined quarterback matchup that features two guys who are roughly the same age as Pete when you add their ages together? Miami, minus 10, over under 47. Pete, what you got?
I think Joe Flacco's like a year behind me, by the way. I think he's. I just turned 60. Is he 59? I think he's close. Joe Flacco and Frank Gore in the same backfield. Please let the rookie run. Let Pirine play. He's the guy. Let him run the football. The Jets are going nowhere. You got to start looking and building into the future. Get Frank Gore off the field. It's a great story. He's had a wonderful career. He's probably going to go to Canton, but get him off the field and let the young kid run the ball. The Jets stink, though. It doesn't really matter who runs the ball. Doesn't matter who plays quarterback. On the other side, I'm going to give Brian Flores a ton of credit. To go out to San Francisco, as banged up as the 49ers are, and go out there and dominate them the way they did. And Ryan Fitzpatrick played well. The receivers played well. I think that's a testament to Brian Flores and what he's doing with that team. I think that continues here. They will take it out on Adam Gase, their former coach. I love Miami in this spot. I think this is a blowout.
10 points for the Miami Dolphins? I don't know. This is way too many points for me. I mean, can anyone tell us the last time the Dolphins were actually favored by 10 points? It has to be over a decade, and maybe even longer than that. But look, this Jets team is bad. I'll remind people, though, it's really hard for teams to go 0-16. Yeah, we've seen some recently, right? The Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. But every once in a while, a team just gets lucky. And I'm not even asking for that here. I'm just asking for the New York Jets to keep it within 10 points. I think they can do that. This is a divisional matchup. Usually these games are a little bit closer than people realize. I think the other thing you have to look at is that standard deviation of the Dolphins and Ryan Fitzpatrick, that high level of play. And then the next week, what do you end up getting? There's usually going to be some sort of spread and big difference week to week in what you're seeing. So I'm betting on that. I'm betting on the fact that the margins of difference that we think between these two teams, based on what we saw a week ago and the fact that it is Joe Flacco and Frank Gore, isn't as big as we think. It's just too big of a spread. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 10 points with the New York Jets. So I might be crazy, but I just don't see the Dolphins running away with this one.
There are 3 rules that I live by, guys. Never get less than 12 hours sleep. Never play cards with a guy who's the same first name as a city. And never bet on Adam Gase and the 2020 Jets. And they stick with that, and everything else is cream cheese. Give me the Dolphins. You just don't bet on the Jets. Don't bet on them. You can't bet on them. They were getting 7.5 points at home against the Cardinals. Cardinals didn't even really try, and the Jets couldn't do anything. They have Joe Flacco and Frank Gore. Their best offensive player is Jamison Crowder. Look at that point differential, minus 86. That's like almost as much as the NFC East combined. I mean, they just can't bet on the Jets. Coach Finstock wouldn't do it. Look at the Dolphins. Green Bay at Tampa Bay. The Packers, a 2-point road favorite. That's how good Pete's Packers are this year. They're a 2-point road favorite against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. You gonna keep riding that cheese train, Pete?
By the way, aside from Amarillo, what other poker players are named after cities?
Well, it could be amateur poker players. It doesn't have to be world famous poker players. Don't play,
where are you going with that?
It's a team quote.
If you're going to use the line, back it up, Brinson. You just pulled that one out of thin air. Come on.
You don't play if you don't ever play poker against somebody named Dallas, okay? Dallas is going to take your money. You don't play poker against Dallas.
I love you, but that one was a reach. Look, the Packers are the best team in the NFL. Some of us said it before the season. Some of us didn't. Others mocked me when I said it before the season. Right now, they're the best team in the NFL. They are. There's no doubt about it. Aaron Rodgers is on fire. He has taken to this offense. They've done it without Devontae Adams. Doing it without Alan Lazard. Doesn't matter who he's throwing to. He made Robert Tonyan look like a star in the last game. And they are rested. They're going to Tampa. Tampa did not look good. The Bucs did not look good against the Bears. They will get Chris Godwin back. That matters. But having said all that, I think this Packers team is rolling. And to keep up with them, you got to score 30, 35 points. I don't know if the Bucs can do that. I do think it's going to be high scoring, but I'll take the Packers to win the game outright. They're the best team in the NFL.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but even the best teams in the NFL don't go 16-0. They got to lose a few every once in a while. And this is one of those ones where, look, I think Tom Brady and the Bucs still have a little bit more extra rest, as do the Packers in this one. But I also think they have a little extra time to figure out some of the issues they had versus the Chicago Bears over that period of time. This defense too for the Bucs is kind of underrated. Like it's actually a really good defense against the run, and they're also not bad against the pass too. It's their offense that's been slowing them down at times, and it's still obviously a work in progress. But as Pete talked about, they get Chris Godwin back. That should help. That should play a factor in all this. And I am curious to see how this Packers team looks, whether Devontae Adams plays or not. Maybe that actually helps, or maybe it hurts. Maybe trying to get him back into the mix somehow plays or throws a wrench into how they've looked without him now. So bottom line is, I think if you're going to give me 2 points and a home dog here, I don't know. I don't like betting against Tom Brady, so I'm going to have to go ahead and take the 2 points in this case.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, Brady. I'll take the points with Tampa. Mostly a Week 5, a regression bet against Pete Prisco, Pete the Peacock Prisco. Look, Josh Allen came back to earth. Maybe it's time for the Packers to come back to earth a little bit. I will say the one thing that really concerns me about this game, and I think is important to watch for Tampa moving forward for a variety of reasons, for betting, for for their futures in that division, and just for their defense as a whole, is how does this run defense look without Vita Vea, with Aaron Jones coming into town and a good Packers rush offense? I might have mispronounced his name. I feel like I always do. There's a wine bar in Raleigh called Vita Vea, so sometimes I mispronounce it, especially when it's like Vita Vea, yeah. But look, you know what? It's 4:45. I got red wine. I got some Pinot Grigio on the mind, Brady. I'm not thinking about run defense here. Look, bottom line is that run defense could seriously take a drop back. And if that happens, then the Packers can go in and dominate on the ground. Aaron Jones can pound the ball. And I think you have to be worried about the Buccaneers defense as a whole moving forward if that is the case. So I think that's something to watch. I'm not going to totally buy into it. They have plenty of players there. And I will take the Packers as a home dog. Coming up after the break, I will get myself a Pinot Noir. And we'll discuss who's going to win between the Rams and 49ers on Sunday night. Welcome back to the Pick 6 podcast show here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Cisco, the bridge to possible. There's a Golden Gate Bridge out in San Francisco. We'll be seeing plenty of shots of it when the Rams play the 49ers on Sunday night. You don't like my segues, Brady? Rams minus 3.5 at the 49ers. The 49ers just got their tails kicked in, Pete, by a Dolphins team on the road. Ruined my survivor pools. The over-under here, 51. What do you think about this Sunday night divisional matchup?
First, I have to apologize to Will Brinson. There is another poker player named Miami John Cernuti or something like that, and his name is Miami John. You don't want to play with him. So I apologize to you. I berated you, and I was wrong. So there. How about that?
I told you 2020 was full of things you don't expect to happen.
As far as this game, I think the Rams are rolling. And yes, it was the NFC East. They ran right through them. They beat every single team in that division, and they impressed in doing so. The competition hasn't been great. But I think this team with Jared Goff, the way he's playing, I think Sean McVay's doing a great job. He changed all the coordinators. San Francisco is a mess. Let's be honest about it. They are bad right now. They're bad on defense. They have no players on that side of the ball. And Jimmy Garoppolo has issues. He had questions. They benched him. They took him out. Did they bench him? Did they protect him? Who knows? But he got benched. And so I think this is one of those games where the Rams get to show everybody, look, we're in this division race with Seattle, and we'd love to pound San Francisco. They hate the 49ers. I think they show it here. I like the Rams minus the points.
These divisional games always tend to be closer than we think on the outside. You're just so familiar with the scheme, with the personnel. And so even though this feels like it might be a lopsided affair, I do think it'll be closer than maybe we think. All that being said, Pete kind of touched on some of the issues, the Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever it was. I think he ultimately said a benching. I guess that's how you have to categorize it. But either way, it's a bad sign for this offense, especially going up against the defense that's got the best player in the NFL in Aaron Donald. He's been phenomenal this year. Jalen Ramsey's back to looking like his old self. This entire defense has really stepped up their level of play from where they were a year ago. But the other thing that's concerning for me in talking about the San Francisco 49ers is Robert Saleh, their defensive coordinator. He kind of settled in after being in Seattle in that typical cover 3, some man-to-man, some cover 1 matchups. But when you elevate a practice squad player and Brian Allen, player out of Utah like they did last week, and you keep putting him on an island, and that team keeps exploiting him in one-on-one coverage, that's on you. That's not on the player. It's not his fault. You've got to give him some help. You've got to adapt. You've got to figure out something else to do to help give your team a chance to win. Put a safety over top of him. Don't put him in that situation, or don't play him in general. Whatever the case may be, Robert Saleh has not adapted or adjusted when he's needed to with all the injuries that they've sustained in their secondary. So for that reason, I do think the LA Rams win this game. Always hate the hook in this case, but I'm willing to lay it because I just think this LA Rams team is operating at a much higher clip, as at a much better place on both sides of the football.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, you talk about adapting and changing how you approach it. Sean McVay has done that this season. I mean, he is fixed. Like last year, people were worried about McVay because they didn't make the necessary changes to keep the offense rolling once sort of a blueprint for their standard approach had been figured out. Now they've got Jared Goff cooking again. They're using a bunch of play action. They've got Cooper Kupp playing well, Robert Woods well, and the defense looks good too. I think this is a spot where it feels too easy to take the Rams, because they're 3.5-point favorites, and you saw San Francisco just lose. Home field advantage doesn't exist though, and this is a big spot for the Rams. They need to keep pace with the Seattle Seahawks. This would be a huge divisional win. I think they go out there and take care of business. Clean sweep for us here, taking the Rams. Got a couple of Monday night games, and it starts on Fox. 5 p.m. back-to-back weeks. 2 in the last 3 weeks. You get back-to-back Monday night games. The time is compressed, Brady. Nobody knows what week it is. Kansas City -3.5 at Buffalo, over under 57.5. Pete, a delightful game with 2 MVP candidates in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen here.
First one to 35 wins. How about that? That's the way I see it. I think this game's going way over. I think both defenses are having issues. You saw Derek Carr carve them Chiefs to shreds. I think you look at all the injuries. Depending on what Tre'Davious White does, it looks like he'll play in this game. At least that's what they're hoping for. That'll help them in a big way. But I think this is one of those games where both quarterbacks are gunslingers. And both hate being patient. We saw that with Josh Allen against the Tennessee Titans. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes against the Chargers earlier this year, against the Patriots. They want to sling it around. Well, both defenses are going to give them a chance to sling it around here. I don't think they're going to play a patient style of defense. The Bills love the blitz. We know the Chiefs love the blitz. That means a lot of big plays. That means a fun game. But in the end, I'm going to go with the Bills. I think they bounce back. I think the NFL did them a disservice with the way they handled the COVID situation. They made them prepare for 2 teams. They spent a lot of time preparing for the Chiefs. Now I think they're going to get all that preparation and use it to their advantage. I'll take the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, they really put them at a disadvantage. They had them play a team that hadn't practiced in 2 weeks. That sounds like a huge disadvantage, Pete. Look, I tend to agree with you, at least as far as what this game is going to be about.
Brady. That wasn't their fault.
Can't tell that there's an extreme delay either with Pete Prisco just now getting that. That or it's old age. We're not sure which. But bottom line is this game's with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. But as Pete pointed out, it's really going to be about the 2 defenses. And I am wondering if you look at how Tennessee was effective versus Josh Allen, sitting back, playing a softer zone coverage, not being quite as aggressive. And then also how teams have been effective versus Patrick Mahomes. Same thing. 3-man rushers, drop 8 from time to time, playing more soft zone, making him earn it the long, hard way. I wonder if both these defenses end up implementing some of that, and this game ends up being lower scoring than we think and surprises all of us. Either way, though, both these defenses need to figure out what went wrong because they both struggled a week ago. I do think if Tre'Davious White is back, that changes a lot of things with at least their ability to shadow or match with a guy like Tyreek Hill, which is obviously a huge feather in your cap for any defensive coordinator for any team. The big thing to me, though, is when Pete goes first to 35, the problem is I feel like, yeah, okay, but if it's the Kansas City Chiefs, you have Patrick Mahomes, I don't care what score they're at. They have the opportunity to be able to come back in any game they're in. So for that reason, I give them the slight edge, and I'm willing to lay the 3.5 points.
Yeah, I am too, and I think you're right. It's not first to 35; it's first to 55. That's how you guarantee a win against one of these teams. I do find it very interesting that we saw. You mentioned the soft zone coverage that we talked about versus Josh Allen. We also saw the Chiefs do something similar with Lamar Jackson in the sense like, hey, look, we're not going to let you beat us with your legs. We're going to make you, pass a certain way and make you win in the pocket and sit there and pick apart this, deeper zone coverage. So I wonder if the Chiefs will be able to execute something similar against Josh Allen. You would think they'll at least come in with that kind of game plan, and I think they could probably pull it off. Look, I don't think Josh Allen's going to come crashing back to earth. This is not going to be, him regressing completely off the first 4 weeks of the season. We still know he's a good passer. He's developed well, but I'll take Mahomes against this Buffalo defense, especially even if Tre'Davious White is back. They need all those pieces in place. They're not playing well right now. They need those linebackers. I'll take the Chiefs and lay the points. Arizona at Dallas. Oh, this game was circled as a fantastic matchup before the season with Dak Prescott versus Kyler Murray. No Dak, obviously. It's Andy Dalton. Still a good game, though. Arizona, a 2.5-point road favorite in Big D, over under 55 here, Pete.
Yeah, the best thing about this show is when Brady's mic cuts out when somebody else talks. I love that, by the way. We should keep that on all the time, even in the studio when we get back there. As for this game, I'll take the Cardinals. They're playing 3 straight road games. That is just brutal for any team. But you know what? The Cowboys are so bad on defense. They're awful. I think Kyler Murray goes nuts. I like Arizona. Even if Dak Prescott was in this game, I still would take Arizona. The Cowboys stink. I'll take the Cardinals minus the points.
You can always tell when Pete Prisco's feelings are hurt, so I apologize, Dad. Sorry for offending you on the Pick Six podcast. Here's play here. Too much, too many unexpected things to assume with Andy Dalton coming in at quarterback as far as his chemistry with the wide receivers. If this passing game will continue on the same path it was with Dak Prescott, really just lighting the entire world on fire, I do think they're going to run the football more. It's actually kind of concerning for me, though, versus the Arizona Cardinals defense. It may actually be more effective, and it may actually help out this Dallas Cowboys team. But too many question marks on that side for me. Even without Chandler Jones, I do think the Arizona Cardinals defense can get it done. So willing to lay the 2.5 points here with Arizona.
Yeah, I think Arizona comes in and Kyler Murray puts on a show. We saw him, they did it against the Jets. That doesn't mean a whole ton, but after 2 bad weeks, they righted the ship and they scored a bunch of points. The road games are concerning, but I think Dallas's defense is just awful. They can't stop anybody, and you're going to need to throw it around. They could try to run it early on. Arizona will score. Dallas will have to throw it around to come back, and I think Arizona can make Andy Dalton pay with some pressure, even without Chandler Jones. I will take the Cardinals for a clean sweep. That is the Pick Six podcast show. Our picks are in. Lock them in. Free cash. Presented by Cisco. Thanks for watching. For Brady and Pete, I'm Will Brinson. See you guys later.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.